I woke up on my couch after the party, walked into the bedroom. My fiancée and best friend were in *ked, hugging. I just closed the door and started. I woke up on my couch with the taste of stale beer and the sound of rain against the window. My head pulsed with a slow, heavy rhythm, and for a moment, I couldn't remember why I was there instead of the bed. The house still smelled like cologne, pizza grease, and champagne. Plastic cups and bottles littered the floor. Someone's jacket was hanging off the TV. The night before was supposed to be a small celebration. My promotion finally came through after months of working weekends. My fiancée, Mara, insisted on hosting a party at our apartment. She said we deserved to have fun, that I needed to stop being such a machine. She was charming, loud, and everyone adored her. Especially Grant, my best friend since high school, the one who introduced us in the first place. As I sat up, the memories started to piece together. The laughter, the clinking glasses, Grant pushing another drink into my hand, saying I'd earned it. The music had blurred everything into one long, bright stretch. I must have crashed on the couch after 2 or 3 in the morning. The last thing I remembered was Mara hugging me from behind and whispering that she'd clean up later. I rubbed my eyes, grabbed a bottle of water, and decided to check if she'd fallen asleep in the bedroom. The hallway was dim, only lit by the blinking router light. When I opened the door, I froze. The sheets were twisted, clothes scattered across the floor, and the faint sound of steady breathing filled the room. Mara and Grant were asleep, naked, tangled together in the bed I'd bought last year, the one she said was too firm, but later claimed she'd grown to love. I didn't shout. I didn't move. For several long seconds, I just stood there. The clock on the nightstand blinked 8:41 a.m., and right beside it, I noticed something else, a phone, propped up against a candle jar, still recording. The red dot was blinking. I stepped closer, careful not to make a sound, and saw that it was Grant's phone. The camera faced them both, the screen dimmed, but still active. They hadn't even bothered to stop recording. That detail hit harder than the sight itself. It wasn't some impulsive, drunken mistake. They'd planned it, and they'd filmed it. I turned around, closed the door slowly, and leaned against the wall. The silence of the apartment felt heavier now, pressing against my skull. My chest wasn't burning with anger. It was hollow, like something essential had quietly been removed overnight. I took the phone from the nightstand on my way out, went to the kitchen, and sat at the table. The video was still playing when I unlocked it. There was laughter, their laughter, and Grant's voice slurring through half-formed sentences about how easy it was, how he'd always wondered what it felt like to have what I had. I paused the clip before I could see more. I scrolled back to the gallery, and that's when I found earlier recordings, short videos from the night before. Grant and Mara standing in the kitchen, whispering, mocking me. She said something about how I was too busy chasing promotions to notice what really matters. Grant laughed and kissed her shoulder. Then, one line that rewired everything in my head. By the time he wakes up, he'll think he blacked out early again. So they'd done this before. I put the phone down and stared at the gray light leaking through the window blinds. My pulse slowed to something unnaturally calm. The world didn't feel real anymore, but somehow it was easier that way. The kind of betrayal that doesn't ignite, it freezes you instead. I started moving automatically. I unplugged the router. I picked up my laptop from the living room, logged into our shared bank app, and transferred every cent from the joint account into my personal one. Then I disabled her card. She'd set the account up herself. It would take her a day to notice. Then I took the ring box from the kitchen drawer, the one I'd been planning to use next month in San Diego. I placed it in the freezer, between 2 bags of frozen peas. Somehow that felt fitting. As I sat back down, my phone buzzed. A message from Mara's mother. "You two looked so happy last night. Congratulations on the engagement announcement. We're all so proud of you." Engagement announcement? I opened social media and saw a dozen tag posts. My living room filled with people in the photos, Mara holding up her hand with a ring I hadn't even given her yet. One she'd pulled out of my drawer, apparently for show. The caption under her post said, "He finally asked." Thousands of likes. Dozens of comments. Grant was in the background of one picture, grinning like he'd been in on it. That's when the nausea hit. She told everyone we were engaged hours before cheating in the same bed. I sat there for a long time, listening to the refrigerator hum. My thoughts were methodical now, stripped of any trace of panic. People think heartbreak is loud. It isn't. It's surgical. I looked at the ring box frosting over, the glow of her fake engagement post, and Grant's still recording phone. I knew then I wouldn't confront them. That would make it too simple. They'd cry, spin excuses, drag me into their drama. I wanted something colder. Something they'd remember every time they opened their eyes. So I made breakfast. Toast, eggs, black coffee. I sat on the balcony, scrolling through the messages on Grant's phone. Between 3 and 4 a.m., Mara had texted him. He's out. Lock the door. Don't forget to delete it this time. He never deleted it. By the time they woke up, I was gone. I left my car at the curb and walked to a nearby diner. The waitress there, an older woman with tired eyes, asked if I wanted refills. I said yes, mostly to hear a voice that didn't lie. At 10:26 a.m., my phone buzzed again. A message from Mara. Where are you? I think I drank too much last night. I didn't answer. Instead, I uploaded the entire video from Grant's phone to a hidden cloud drive, locked it with a password, and wrote it down on a napkin. Patience. I folded it carefully and slid it into my wallet. Whatever came next, I wasn't sure yet. But I knew one thing. This wouldn't end with shouting or broken glass. It would end with silence that burned slower and deeper than any revenge they could imagine. That morning wasn't the end of our story. It was the rehearsal for the destruction that followed. When I came back home that afternoon, the apartment felt smaller. The air was heavy with leftover perfume and guilt pretending to sleep. Mara was sitting at the kitchen table, wearing one of my shirts like she always did after nights she wanted to seem innocent. Her hair was wet from a shower, her voice soft when she greeted me. She smiled too much. She spoke like someone trying to erase a memory by overacting normal. She told me she had a migraine and didn't remember much from last night. She said Grant left early, that they all had too much to drink. She looked me right in the eye while saying it. Her lies came out smooth, rehearsed, almost lazy. I nodded, poured a glass of water, and asked if she wanted coffee. I didn't mention the phone in my bag or the footage I'd already uploaded. Her eyes relaxed when she thought I believed her. That small relief told me everything I needed to know. All morning, I'd been thinking about what kind of revenge would actually mean something. Screaming never worked on people like her. They could twist your pain into pity for themselves. What scared them wasn't anger. It was indifference mixed with precision. I watched her move around the kitchen, laughing at a text on her phone. Grant's name popped up on the reflection of the microwave. I memorized the time, 2:11 p.m. She left to run errands an hour later, humming under her breath, like the world was still perfect. The moment the door closed, I took her laptop. Her passwords were lazy. Her birthday, our anniversary, foreverous. I found her photo folder first, then her private one, hidden in a renamed work file. Inside were dozens of pictures, Grant and her together. Some from last night, some older, months older. A hotel room, a cabin I didn't recognize, a mirror selfie where she wore the same necklace I'd given her last Christmas. I should have felt broken, but instead, something colder settled in. The kind of peace that comes from knowing you'll never again underestimate someone. Then I opened her messages. Among thousands of flirtations and jokes was one thread titled Plan. It started 2 months ago. Grant and Mara had talked about moving away, starting something new. She said she wanted to be free before the wedding. He said she didn't need to worry about money because Darren would take care of it all without noticing. That phrase cut deeper than the photos. I read it again, tracing the words like evidence in a courtroom. By the time Mara came home, I'd already created new bank accounts under my name only, moved my investments, and locked every shared login. She noticed nothing. She was too busy talking about how she wanted to host another get-together next week to celebrate my promotion again, properly this time. That's when I got the idea. If she wanted a party, she'd get one. But it wouldn't be a celebration. I told her it was a great idea, that we should invite everyone again. She lit up. She didn't notice how quiet I'd become. She started planning it immediately, calling people, booking a caterer, even asking if Grant could help out again. She laughed when she said it, pretending it didn't sound suspicious. During the next few days, I acted like everything was fine. I brought her flowers, took her to dinner, and made her think I'd already forgotten whatever doubts I might have had. The calmer I was, the more careless she became. She stopped hiding her phone. She stopped deleting messages. She even started flirting openly again, boldly texting Grant while sitting across from me. She thought she was untouchable, that I was still the same man who'd worshipped her. But I was studying her now, not loving her. 2 nights before the new party, I met Grant for drinks. He looked nervous but smiled like nothing was wrong. He tried to act friendly, asking if things were okay between me and Mara. I said everything was perfect. Then I mentioned the new dinner she was planning. His expression shifted instantly, a flicker of panic in his eyes. That was all I needed. While he went to the restroom, I unlocked his phone, same lazy code, his jersey number, and sent myself one message thread. It was between him and Mara, timestamped from last night. She'd texted, "He's acting weird, but we'll play it cool. After this weekend, we'll be free." Free from what exactly? Me? From accountability? From guilt? I smiled to myself and left before he came back. The next evening, Mara decorated the apartment with candles and gold streamers. She wore a silk dress I'd bought for her birthday. She kept glancing at her phone, waiting for Grant to arrive. I stood behind her, pretending to scroll through messages. By 8, the apartment was full. Friends, coworkers, neighbors. Laughter echoed off the walls again. Everyone congratulated us on the engagement. Mara played along beautifully. She toasted to new beginnings. Grant arrived late, disheveled, avoiding my eyes. When the room finally settled, I tapped my glass. I told everyone I wanted to show something special, a short video recap of our last celebration. Mara gasped with excitement, thinking I'd made a tribute. I connected my laptop to the TV. The lights dimmed. The music faded. The video began with harmless clips from my phone, smiles, laughter, toasts. Then, 2 seconds of silence. And the next frame, a dimly lit room. Grant's voice. Mara's laugh. The image flickered, just enough for people to recognize them before the screen went black. The reaction was instant chaos. Someone shouted. A glass shattered. Mara's face drained of color. Grant froze. Then I calmly pressed stop and smiled. Sorry, I said lightly. Wrong file. I switched to a slideshow of random party photos like nothing had happened. People whispered behind their hands. The tension was a living thing in the room now. Mara tried to recover, forcing a laugh, claiming it was an old video, some drunk mistake. Grant said nothing. He just left the room. I could feel the atmosphere shift permanently. Whispers spread. The looks people gave her weren't curious. They were disgusted. When the party ended, Mara tried to act normal again, cleaning plates, pretending nothing happened. Her hands shook so badly that she dropped a glass. Later that night, as she slept, I sat on the balcony and opened my messages. One unread text blinked on my screen, from an unknown number. I saw the video. You're not the only one she lied to. Meet me tomorrow. No name. No photo. The next morning, I met the sender at a small cafe downtown. It was Holly, Grant's girlfriend. I hadn't seen her at the party. She looked exhausted, like she hadn't slept in days. She said she'd suspected something for months, but didn't have proof until now. She told me Grant had borrowed money from her, claiming he needed it for a business project. Then she found transfers to Mara's account. They were planning to move to Florida together, using money from both of us. The betrayal deepened, but this time it came with clarity. Holly showed me screenshots of flight bookings for the following week. My name was listed as the payment method. They used my credit card. They'd planned it so smoothly, counting on me being too distracted to notice. When she asked what I was going to do, I didn't answer immediately. Because right then, for the first time, I realized what real revenge could look like, something that would make them question every decision they'd ever made. I told Holly I had a plan, and if she wanted, she could be part of it. She hesitated for a moment, then nodded. And just like that, the quiet game became a war neither Mara nor Grant would see coming. Holly and I sat in that cafe for nearly 2 hours, dissecting every piece of what they'd done. Every transaction, every message, every lie. She had screenshots from Grant's phone that made even my stomach turn. He'd told her she was just convenient, that she was useful for covering bills. The same man who used to sleep on my couch when he got evicted was now stealing my money through my own fiancée. Holly's face didn't show pain anymore, just exhaustion mixed with resolve. We didn't need to say the word revenge. It hung in the air between us like static. We both understood what needed to happen. The first move had to look accidental. If they suspected me, it would ruin everything. I told Holly to stay quiet, act as if she didn't know anything. I'd handle the rest. She agreed. Over the next few days, I turned Mara's life into a series of small, invisible collapses. Her debit card suddenly stopped working. Her phone plan mysteriously reset, erasing backups. Deliveries she ordered never arrived. She spent hours on hold with customer service, growing more agitated by the day. She called me at work once, almost in tears, complaining that she felt cursed. Meanwhile, I was transferring money out of accounts she didn't even know existed. Every dollar I'd ever earned that she'd touched, I pulled back into my name. But there was a more elegant layer to what I wanted. Something that would make her and Grant destroy each other without realizing I was the one pulling strings. The following weekend, I sent 2 anonymous packages. One to Grant's workplace, containing printed screenshots of his messages with Mara, including a few that mentioned using company credit to fund their trips. The other to Mara's office, an envelope with photos of her and Grant together, postmarked with no return address. I didn't expect the chaos to start so quickly. By Monday afternoon, Mara came home early, trembling with rage. She accused me of invading her privacy, though she couldn't explain how I could have gotten those photos. She shouted that her boss wanted to talk about professionalism. Grant called her while she was still yelling. She answered on speaker without noticing, and I heard his panic. His firm had suspended him pending investigation. Someone had reported inappropriate financial activity. Their downfall had started eating itself alive. I watched it unfold from the kitchen counter, pretending to care. I nodded, offered comfort, asked if she wanted me to call someone. She didn't realize how calm I was, how I'd stopped blinking while she spoke. That night, she barely ate. She kept pacing, muttering that someone was trying to ruin her life. The irony nearly made me laugh. The next day, I met Holly again. She looked lighter, almost peaceful. She'd found out something new. Grant had been lying to Mara too. He wasn't planning to move away with her. He was juggling another woman, a co-worker at his firm, and he'd been promising her the same future he'd promised Mara. It was almost poetic how their betrayals stacked up in perfect symmetry. Holly asked what the next step was. I told her it was time to make them face each other. I told Mara I wanted to throw one last dinner, a closure night before she and I took some space. She immediately agreed, probably thinking she could use it to repair her image or regain control. I told her to invite Grant, to clear the air. She hesitated for a second, but her desperation overpowered her shame. She said yes. On the night of the dinner, I made everything perfect. Candles, a slow jazz playlist, wine. The table set for 4, because I'd also invited Holly, though Mara didn't know. The doorbell rang. Grant walked in, nervous but trying to act casual. He brought a bottle of wine as if we were still friends. Then Mara appeared, dressed like nothing had ever happened, pretending everything was under control. When Holly walked in last, the air changed. She said nothing, just sat opposite Mara. For the first few minutes, no one spoke except me. I poured drinks, made small talk about work, asked if anyone had plans for the holidays. Then I said I had a surprise to lighten the mood. I turned the TV toward the table and pressed play. It wasn't the full video, just the start, the laughter, the whispering, the sounds from that night. Then it faded to black again. Mara's glass slipped from her hand. Grant went rigid. Holly just stared. I didn't say a word. I let the silence expand until it crushed the air out of the room. Mara finally broke, shouting that this was out of context, that I was twisting things. Holly stood up, walked to her, and threw the printed photos on the table, ones Mara had sent to Grant months earlier. You ruined my life, Holly said quietly. Then she turned to Grant. And you never even told her I was pregnant. Mara's head snapped toward him, eyes wide. He looked stunned, like the words had hit him physically. I hadn't known that part either. The twist slammed into me too, but I didn't let it show. Mara began screaming at Grant, accusing him of lying to her, using her. Grant shouted back that he'd lost his job because of her. Holly backed away, tears forming but her voice steady. She told them both that they deserved each other and left. The sound of the door slamming echoed for several seconds. Grant turned to me next, his face twisted with guilt and desperation. He muttered something about not meaning for it to happen. I told him I didn't care what he meant. Intentions were for people who could be trusted. He left soon after, slamming the door. Mara followed him outside barefoot, chasing him down the hall, still shouting. I stood at the window and watched her beg him not to leave her alone. When the building finally went quiet, I sat at the table surrounded by shattered glass, half-eaten food, and the faint smell of candle wax. I thought it was over. But later that night, my phone buzzed again. A message from an unknown number. I hope you're happy. You ruined 3 lives tonight. No name, but I knew who it was, Mara. She didn't stop there. Over the next few days, she sent paragraphs about how she'd lost everything, how she was the victim of manipulation. Then one message that made me pause. I know what you did. You think you're safe? Watch your inbox. That same evening, I received an email from an unfamiliar address, with attachments. One was a copy of the video I'd played during the dinner. The sender had forwarded it to multiple people, including my company's HR department. She was trying to take me down with her. But here's where she miscalculated. The video she sent wasn't the real one. The file had been uploaded weeks ago to a hidden drive I controlled. The version she sent was a decoy, one I'd replaced the morning after the party. It showed nothing explicit, just laughter and blurred footage. All it proved was that I'd accidentally played a corrupted file. HR dismissed it instantly. Her attempt backfired. Her last bit of credibility gone. 2 days later, she showed up at my office lobby. Security stopped her before she reached my floor. She screamed that she needed to see me, that she was being hunted online. Someone had leaked the actual footage publicly that morning and censored. I hadn't done it, and neither had Holly. Whoever did knew exactly how to make it hurt. I didn't find out who sent it until later. It wasn't me. It wasn't Holly. It was Grant's own coworker, the one he'd been seeing behind Mara's back. She'd found the videos in his email archive after his suspension. She sent them to everyone. Grant went into hiding. Mara's family blocked her. She lost her job within hours. That night, as I scrolled through the chaos, Holly called me. Her voice was calm. She said she wanted to meet one last time, just to settle everything. I agreed, because something about the way she said it didn't sound like closure. It sounded like a door opening to another twist neither of us saw coming. The night Holly called, the city felt strangely quiet. The storm that had hung over the week finally broke, leaving the streets glossy and reflective. I met her at a small riverside bar, the kind with cheap wine and soft lighting that made everyone look a little bit lost. She was already there when I arrived, sitting by the window with a glass untouched in front of her. Her phone was face down on the table. When she saw me, she gave a faint smile. Not the kind that meant comfort. One that said she'd already made peace with something. I sat across from her. Neither of us spoke for the first minute. There wasn't much left to say after everything that had burned down. Then she exhaled and said quietly, "It's done." She meant Grant and Mara. The video had gone viral across their entire social circle. Friends, co-workers, even family had seen it. Mara tried to file a privacy complaint, but by then, it had already been reposted hundreds of times. Grant's company released an internal statement confirming his termination. He disappeared, shut off his phone, deleted social media, left his apartment. Mara's mother sent me one last message that week. "You were right about her. I'm sorry you had to find out like that." Then blocked her own daughter. Holly told me that after the leak, Mara had shown up at Grant's workplace, screaming, begging for answers. Grant had walked past her without a word. That was the last anyone saw of him. It should have been over. That's what I thought, sitting across from Holly. But then she slid her phone toward me. On the screen was an email sent from my personal address to her. It said, "Delete the footage after you post it. Make sure they think it's you. I'll handle the rest." The timestamp was from the morning the video went public. My stomach dropped. It wasn't real. I hadn't sent that. The wording, the phrasing, it was too careful, too deliberate. Someone wanted it to look like me. I scrolled down. Attached to the email were stills of me and Holly at the cafe, the dinner, even outside her apartment. Someone had been following us, collecting everything. "Who sent this to you?" I asked. Holly stared out the window, her reflection pale in the glass. "Mara," she said. "Last night. She said if I didn't tell you, she'd ruin me too." She leaned back, rubbing her temples. "She thinks we worked together to destroy her, that I leaked it on your orders." I sat there, trying to process it. Mara had nothing left to lose. That made her dangerous. Holly said she'd tried to reason with her, but Mara wasn't listening. She was unraveling fast, calling everyone, threatening lawsuits, blaming everyone but herself. She told her family she'd been blackmailed, told co-workers I'd hacked her accounts, told mutual friends she was set up. It was the desperation of a person watching their identity rot in real time. I told Holly to ignore her, to block every number she didn't recognize. She nodded, though I could see in her eyes she didn't believe it was over either. We left separately that night. The next morning, I woke to 3 missed calls and a voicemail from an unknown number. It was Mara's voice, trembling, half whisper, half sob. She said she needed to see me one last time. She said she had proof that someone else was behind everything, that I'd been played. I deleted the message without listening to the end. Around noon, police cars pulled up outside her apartment complex. A neighbor had called it in after hearing shouting and glass breaking. The report said she'd been found unconscious after overdosing. The paramedics got to her in time, but she was in the hospital for days. I didn't visit. Guilt isn't the same thing as sympathy. You can feel sorry for what someone became without forgetting what they did to make it happen. When she woke up, she tried again, called from the hospital, asked for me. I refused. She sent another letter through a mutual friend, one that made my hands shake. Inside was a printed screenshot. It was from a fake social profile, anonymous, created a month earlier. It showed conversations between me and someone using Holly's photo. Dozens of messages, long, intimate, romantic, fabricated perfectly. She claimed this was her proof that Holly and I had planned everything from the start. I showed it to Holly later that day. She didn't even flinch. "I know," she said. "She sent them to me too." That was the final thread holding Mara together, trying to rewrite her own downfall into a story where she was the victim of a grand conspiracy. But she underestimated how much damage she'd already done. Her company fired her officially that week for conduct violations. Her landlord gave notice. Her family refused to take her in. She posted a long, rambling message online about betrayal and forgiveness that got shared for all the wrong reasons. It turned into a meme. People laughed. I didn't share it, but I read it twice. Every word felt like a closing door. Grant never resurfaced. Rumor had it he left town, maybe the state. Some said he'd gone to Texas. Others swore they'd seen him in a rehab center near Phoenix. None of it mattered. He'd become a ghost before he ever disappeared. And Holly, for a while, we kept seeing each other. Not romantically, not exactly. More like two survivors clinging to the same wreckage. We'd meet for coffee, talk about jobs, life, normal things. But every conversation eventually circled back to what happened. The scandal, the fallout, the way people treated us differently afterward. She said she didn't regret any of it, that watching them destroy each other had been cathartic. I told her I didn't regret it either, but I wasn't sure that was true. Sometimes revenge gives you closure. Sometimes it just replaces grief with silence. A month later, she called to say she was moving to Portland. A new job, a new start. I wished her luck. We didn't say goodbye, not really. Just let the line go quiet until one of us hung up. Life after that was quieter. I sold the apartment, bought a small place near the coast, started working remotely. Some nights, when the waves were loud enough, I almost forgot the sound of Grant's laughter or Mara's voice. Almost. Then, one evening, while checking my mail, I found a small, unmarked envelope. Inside was a folded note and a photo. The note said, "Now we're even." The photo was of Holly, standing beside a man who looked exactly like Grant, both smiling, holding drinks. It wasn't dated. At first, I thought it was fake. Then I looked closer at the background. A sign on the wall. "Welcome to Phoenix Lounge." The same rehab roomer from weeks before. I sat down on my porch, the sound of the ocean mixing with my heartbeat. If it was real, it meant one of two things. Either Holly had found him and gone back, or she'd set me up from the beginning. Maybe she'd used me to wipe both of them out, then forgiven him once she'd burned me too. The thought didn't make me angry. It made me tired. In the end, I realized the truth didn't even matter. Whether she'd betrayed me or not, whether they found their way back to each other, it was all part of the same cycle. People like them didn't stop until someone walked away for good. So I poured a drink, burned the photo in an ashtray, and watched the edges curl. I never heard from any of them again. A year later, my company sent me to a conference in Seattle. During a coffee break, a stranger stopped me, said she'd recognized me from somewhere. It took me a moment to realize she meant the video. She said she remembered the story, how that poor guy had been betrayed by his fiancée and best friend. She laughed awkwardly and said, "Must have been brutal, huh?" I smiled politely. It was educational. When she left, I looked out over the harbor and thought about everything that had happened. The video, the manipulation, the messages, the endless web of lies. In the end, none of them destroyed me. They destroyed each other trying to. That was the only revenge worth having.